Hi, welcome back to Memorize the Bible. Today we're going to be doing a very popular psalm, Psalm 23. It starts out with, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Now I imagine a little sheep walking up to Jesus with his shepherd's staff and bleating or baaing in pleasure because it wants to be petted, and Jesus pets the sheep. To remember that. That's what I visualize. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Now, I imagine Jesus and the sheep walk into a green pasture, and him getting the shepherd's crook and gently lying the sheep down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. Now, I imagine him leading the sheep from the pasture down to a stream and it stopping or being still. He restores my soul. So now I imagine the sheep drinking the water, the still water, and maybe before it was like kind of drooping, but then it's refreshed. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Now I imagine Jesus leading the sheep up a mountain path that's straight and narrow, the path of righteousness for his name's sake, and then attaching a little medallion around the sheep's neck that says Jesus for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So now I imagine them on that mountain path. All of a sudden they walk over a rise and it turns into a valley, and it's very shadowed, and there's bones in it for the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil. And now I imagine them walking through the valley with the bones around it, and wolves starting to come around, and the sheep baaing and smiling because it's not afraid, because Jesus is with him. Now, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now I imagine Jesus holding a rod in his right hand and a shepherd's staff with a little crook in the left, and patting the sheep with it, and the wolves, and using the rod to scare away the wolves. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now I imagine there's a stone rock table in the middle of the valley, and Jesus leads the sheep up to the rock table and takes out of a pouch some grass, preparing a table for the sheep in the midst of his enemies. Then you anoint my head with oil. Then I imagine Jesus taking a flask of oil and anointing the head of the sheep. My cup runs over. I just imagine him placing a cup onto the table and filling it until it's overflowing with water. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Now I imagine him leading the sheep after the valley up the straight and narrow rock trail again, and two angels, goodness and mercy, one with goodness written on it, good written on its back, and one with mercy written on its back, following along behind the sheep and Jesus all the days of my life. Now I imagine the sheep for growing gray as it's walking, maybe even growing a beard on the sheep for all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now they've reached the pinnacle of the peak, and there's a house there, and the and the sheep is dwelling in it. And as the sun just moves over the house day after day after day after day, many times, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And that's how we're going to memorize Psalm 23. Now, I've already done this before, so it's not going to be too hard for me, but, just practice that until you got it down.